Hello, everybody. So I'm Annabel Karmel. I trained as a musician. I used to play the harp, and I got married, and I had a little girl called Natasha. But one day, she didn't look quite right, and I took her to a doctor, and he told me that first-time mothers worry about their babies and that she was fine. But the next day, she didn't look at all good, and I took her to another doctor, and he told me that she was seriously ill, and she went to hospital. And 5 days later, she died in my arms, and it changed my whole life. So my second child, a son, was born a year later, and he was quite literally the world's worst eater. So I was running a playgroup, and I was making up recipes for Nicholas. And I eventually got him to eat really well, and I was giving all my recipes to the mothers at the playgroup. And eventually they would say to me, "You know what? You should write a book about feeding children." And I thought about it, and I thought that that would be a fantastic legacy for Natasha, my first child. And I started to research child nutrition. So I wanted to find out the truth about what children should be eating. And I went up and down the country in England, speaking to all of the experts. And it was very difficult writing my first book, because they would contradict each other. When should you give eggs? When should you introduce fish? And it was really hard, so I decided to work with the Institute of Child Health, and everything I wrote in the book was based on scientific research. So I was struggling to get Nicholas, my son, to eat chicken or meat, but he loved apple. So I made these little chicken balls and apple balls, and I put grated apple into them, and suddenly I got him to eat chicken and meat. And in my book, I would make these combinations that I found children absolutely loved. And the thing about my book was all these mothers who had children who wouldn't eat suddenly found all these recipes, and the children loved them so much, they would become good eaters. The other thing I looked at was allergies. Like a lot of babies and children are allergic to eggs or mango, and the research was showing that by avoiding giving eggs when children were very young, it was more likely that they would actually have an allergy. So even if your child can't eat things like scrambled eggs or omelets, sometimes it's a really good idea to give your child a biscuit which contains eggs, and by gradually introducing a small amount of egg into your child's diet. So when I started writing my books, people weren't giving peanuts, weren't giving eggs until children were nearly a year. And now in England, babies are having eggs from 6 months, peanuts from 6 months, and less children are becoming allergic. So the big problem, as well as in China and also England, is obesity and children eating too much unhealthy food. So one of the things we're doing in England is the government has put a sugar tax on sugary drinks like Coca-Cola. Companies like Coca-Cola, for example, will have to pay about £125 million a year because of the sugar tax. And that means that a lot of companies will reformulate their drinks with less sugar to avoid having to pay the tax. This is a very good thing that England is doing. So junk food like hamburgers, pizzas, you can make your own. So in my books, I have what I call healthy junk food, how to make your own chicken nuggets, how to make a hamburger out of lean meat, and I always put apple in it because babies like that. So even children who are hooked on junk food can eat well, and they're very, very popular. And in England, we have a huge following on Facebook and Instagram, and I make recipes for kids that are very easy and very quick. Because I think the problem is that we get a bit stuck in a rut, and we make the same meals over and over again. And sometimes we don't realize that children are more adventurous than we might imagine. And they like things like a teriyaki salmon or something like noodles, and we try and give them a lot of variety, because the more different foods you give them when they're young, the less likely it is they will be fussy. So it's really important that children learn to cook. They can operate the most complicated computer games, yet they can't boil an egg or make a piece of toast. So I think learning to cook starts at home. And when children can cook, they eat much more healthily. We have Weibo, we're in Little Red House, and you will see videos of me cooking with my son or my 2 daughters, the kind of recipes we make for our children to get them to eat healthily. And so we are putting these recipes onto Chinese social media so that you in China can follow the same way that we cook in England. I think that a lot of Chinese people, I know they love traditional like congis and foods like that for their babies, but they also like Western baby food. So we're bringing in a whole range of food that we sell in England into China, and we hope that you love it. And I also want to bring you some of my favorite recipes. So they're coming on my videos. And I've got a lovely girl over here who works with me now. She speaks Chinese, Bing. And we're working on Weibo and Little Red House and all of the social media in China. And I'm very excited about working in China because my books are published all over the world in about 25 countries. And I've always felt that China is a fantastic place to be, to help you to feed your children healthy food, because what your child will eat today will determine their future tomorrow, because 1 in 3 of us will die from a diet-related disease. So we really do need to form our children's eating habits from the very beginning when they start to eat food, because they're a clean palate. They don't know about sugar, they don't know about salt. So we have to train them to have good eating habits. And thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.